Good morning, guys. How's it going? My name is John Garcia. I'm the District Safety and Security Administrator. I know some of y'all have seen me around, probably wondering who I am. Well, it's my formal introduction to y'all. I've been with the district for about a month, and they said, hey, we need you to put on a course that's kind of mandatory for seniors, which I was like, oh, great, put the weight on me, you know, to give a course that I've never taught. But I'm going to do my best, so if y'all can bear with me. This is just some of my education, my experience. I worked for the Robstown Police Department for about 12 years. Then I went to the city of Falfurrias, and I was the chief of police over there. I did graduate from Robstown in 2005. I do live here in Calallen. And currently, obviously, I'm with the district. My education, went to Del Mar, got my associates, got my basic peace officer license, went to the island, got my bachelor's, and I got my master's in public administration. Some of my certifications are there. I think the coolest one that I probably have, besides the Enduro motorcycle, is a basic hostage negotiator. I had to actually use that in Robstown, where I used a slush from Sonic to get a guy to open the door, and we were able to keep him from killing himself, which I thought was pretty cool. But for the most part, my experience, I was a traffic officer. So for about 7-8 years solid, that's all I did was just traffic stops. I would stop about 300 cars a month. I would deal with a lot of people. I saw a lot of things. I did some interdiction on the highway, which, you know, you deal with drugs, money, smuggling of persons and kids. I got in a couple of pursuits on foot and in the car, which are pretty fun, but at the same time, they're really dangerous. One time, I did have to jump in the driver's seat of a car when they were driving off, which is pretty scary. But at the time, you're not thinking about it, you're just trying to do your job. So those are a couple of fun stories I got from Robstown. You can go to the next slide. So I'm here to talk about Senate Bill 30, which is your Community Safety Education Act. Got passed in 2017. 2018, it was mandated for high school students to take this course. Really focusing on your interactions with police officers during a traffic stop. Obviously, you're about to leave high school, you're going to be doing a lot more driving, and there's a great chance that you might get stopped and you have to deal with a police officer. But remember, guys, there's thousands of cars that go through the roadway with maybe about 2 officers on the road, so unless you're driving really, really fast or being really, really reckless, you're going to get stopped. You go to the new one. So during this bill, they propose that we develop and consolidate the progress of the traffic rules and public activities. It includes respecting gender equity. It gives access to positions to all levels of the justice system, institutionalize and strengthen mechanisms that improve the access of the entire population to the judicial administration system and ultimate forms of conflict resolution, such as arbitration, conciliation, and mediation, and establish spaces for training mediators to streamline the administration of justice and contribute with the social peace. Train and sensitize the personnel of all institutions of the justice system on human rights, with emphasis on the rights of women, children, and adolescents. Universalize and strengthen the reform of the penitentiary system as means of rehabilitation, re-education, social reintegration of people who are serving sentences. But today, our focus is going to be on the next slide. The roles of law enforcement and the duties and responsibilities of peace officers, persons' rights concerning interactions with peace officers, proper behavior for civilians and peace officers during interactions, laws regarding questioning and detention by peace officers, including any law requiring a person to present proof of identity to the peace officer, and the consequences for a person's or an officer's failure to comply with those laws, and how and where to file a complaint against or a compliment on behalf of a peace officer. Next point. So we're going to touch on the first topic. Even myself, even when I'm driving, even when I was in a cop car, if I saw another cop or a trooper get behind me, I would still tense up. It's a natural reaction, and I would have to snap out of it. Like, wait a minute, I'm in a cop car. I'm good for the most part. But even to this day, I guarantee you, everybody that you see when a cop comes around, they're either going to tap on the brakes and they're going to tense up. And don't worry, it's a natural reaction. But when you get stopped, I want to have a little bit of interaction with you guys. What do you expect will happen during a traffic stop? Has anyone experienced a traffic stop? What happened and how did you feel at the time? So has anybody in here been stopped before? I'll raise my hand too, yeah. All the time, okay. So real quick, how was that experience? What happened? Calm down right here with your, it was no good, what happened?
I was speeding in a school zone.
Shh. And what happened?
I was stopped by a gentleman on a motorcycle, and I didn't see him. And so
those motorcycle cops, right? They just get everybody, don't they?
hidden.
I mean, yeah. So you got a ticket then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you nervous at the time?
Yes.
You scared? Did you know how to act?
I knew more or less.
More or less?
But,
okay.
You know, this is common sense.
Yeah. So he said that he got stopped in the school zone by a motorcycle cop. He said those guys are always hiding. You can never see them, which is true. I was one of those motorcycle cops, and I would always make people upset because I would stop them for an action that they took that caused them to lead to that traffic stop. One thing I learned right away is that you don't tell people as a police officer, hey, you're not mad at me, you did this. You know, you never want to go up there and start off like that. You never want to disrespect somebody or make them more upset than what they already are. Generally, when you get stopped by a cop, you're going to be upset. You're going to wonder what you did wrong. You might have had to been somewhere at the time. You might have been rushing. You might have to go to the restroom, which is one we always hear. You know, or I didn't see the sign. I didn't see you. I don't know where I'm going. I mean, a list of excuses. But always remember, when you get stopped by a police officer, stay calm. Don't panic. Don't worry about it. I know society puts out there videos of traffic stops where it goes south right away. Mainly because they're, you know, being arrogant, or they're just trying to push the envelope a little bit to see how far they can get because they want to be the next social media, what do you call it? Oh my, a viral video. I'm sorry, I'm tripping out. Do you want to be the next viral video? So go to your next slide. So here's what you should expect during a traffic stop. Officers should treat motorists with dignity and respect. It is a department policy for an officer to provide their name, badge number, and it's not a state law, which I'll get back to that one. If a citation or a ticket is issued, the officer should give the driver instructions necessary to satisfy the court appearance. When seeking to perform a consensual search, officers should elicit clear consent for the search. When practicable, they should get a signed consent form and record it on your body camera or your dash camera. So, the second part, it is not, we don't have to give you our name and badge number. It is a department policy. Once again, I learned that the hard way. I was dealing with a drunk person who, you know, was kind of aggravating me. I was kind of in my first, second year. She kept bugging me, and she goes, "What's your name?" And I said, "You can't read, it's on my badge." You know, which led to, you know, me aggravating her a little bit more. You know, we did arrest her, but then I did get counseled by, hey, according to our policy, you have to give them your badge number and your name in case they want to file a complaint. So, which we'll get to that later on in the slides. But if you do ask an officer for their name, department policy, they are going to give you their name, their badge number. State law, you don't have to, but departments do it for that purpose of complaints and just to be respectful among each other. Consensual search. And this is something I've talked to a couple people about. If an officer goes and asks you, "Can I search your car?" they have to have probable cause. If they do not have a probable cause to be in your car, they cannot get in there legally. But if they ask you if they could search your car and you say yes, then they search it. But at any point, if you get uncomfortable, or they're taking their time, and you say, "You know what? You're done with your search. I need to get about my way," you can pull that consent. Just because you give them consent and they start searching your car doesn't mean that they're going to take their time. At any point, if you say, "You're done, let me get back in my car, let me get about my way. If you're going to give me a ticket or a warning, give it to me so I can leave." You have that right to pull that consent. Even if you signed a consent form and everything, it's consensual, which means you're giving them limited ability to search your car. You give them limited access. Can they search your trunk? Yes. Can they search your glove box? Yes. They can do all that stuff. But at any point, if you say you're done with your search, they have to stop by law. And if they don't, then they're going to get in trouble. And you know, they could get some criminal charges on them for illegal searches. They might even become case law, which is not cool. Traffic citation, you know, when I was doing traffic, I would always reiterate to the people that I gave a citation to, number is on the top, number is on the bottom. You call them within this time frame. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, speak to them, because at times people want to argue with you on the side of the road. And I say, look, there's a time and place for this. Right here is not the time. My safety is at risk. Your safety is at risk. Here's your citation. Call the number for any information, and I go about my way. As a training officer, I would really implement that to my trainees because I almost got hit by a vehicle on a traffic stop, and my unit got hit by a drunk driver while I was on a traffic stop outside of the car on Highway 77, right where the fairgrounds is. It's really scary when you hear it, but you know, I always practice some safe measures for myself because I knew that I was on a busy highway, so I made sure that I was always protected no matter what. So like I said, I try not to spend too much time on the side of the road. Now some guys, you know, some officers might come off a little rude. It's not that they're being rude, but they're there to handle business and get out of there as quick as they can. Because the more time you spend on the road, the greater the chance that not only you as a driver is going to get hit, but the officer will get hit. Next slide. So here are some rights concerning your officers. Concerning your actions with the peace officer. 2 questions. What are some things you think you should do when you're interacting with a peace officer on a traffic stop? What are some things you think you shouldn't do when stopped? So, what do you think you should do when a cop stops you and you're talking to them? Be polite, correct. What do you think you shouldn't do?
Keep your hands on the wheel.
Yeah, be rude, the whole number of that. So I know that with society, with social media, a lot of people like to record their traffic stops, the drivers, which was fine with me. And when I walked out there, I always made it a point to let them know that I knew they were recording me. Kind of breaking the ice with them and said, hey, you know, I'm Officer Garcia, whatever, the reason you're being stopped, this is that. And I noticed it, I say, and by the way, can you make sure you get my good side on your camera? And it would give them a little chuckle, which would kind of ease them to where they're not as tense. I always trying to find a way to build a rapport with every driver, because the last thing I need for them is to make something bigger than what it is. If I'm stopping you for a simple traffic violation, I'm either going to give you a citation or a warning, and you're going to go about your way. I'm not there to waste your time. I'm not there to spend any more time than I need to. All I'm doing is a job to get you out of here. As a law enforcement officer, we're not there to run... Here's something I say. There's no such thing as a quota. Okay, I know everyone says, oh, you got to meet a quota. You're trying to meet your ticket quota. There's no such thing as a quota. Police officers do not have to give citations. We are not required by the department to go give a citation. Now, we are required to do some traffic enforcement, which means we got to be out there, we got to be active, we got to be stopping cars, we got to be a presence on the roadway to make sure that everyone is abiding by these laws, that we slow down traffic, that we hit spots like school zones where people might be flying through there, construction zones where there's people working. That is our job. It is a personal decision to give out a citation. Okay, so there's no such thing as a quota. Me personally, as a traffic officer, I wrote, like I said, about 300 tickets a month. But that was just me. But my sole job was to be a traffic enforcement officer. So I got to pick whatever schedule I want to work. I was off weekends. I worked maybe half of my shift, 4 hours, to where I was actually out there giving out tickets, and the other 4 hours I was just riding around on my motorcycle or helping out the other guys. Okay, so remember, there's really no such thing as a quota, so don't ever believe that myth. Next one. So here's some notes for the drivers. Law enforcement drivers should respond with courtesy during traffic stops and other officer-citizen interactions. Although it is lawful for you to remain silent during a traffic stop, you are required by law to truthfully identify yourself when asked to do so by an officer. A driver or passenger can be arrested for giving false identifying information to an officer. Although you have the right to remain silent, it may be beneficial to verbally provide identifying and address information to an officer if you cannot present your license. An officer may conduct a non-consensual search based on the officer's observation that you have responded in a way to make the officer believe that you have engaged in a criminal act or are about to engage in a criminal act. If an officer suspects that a weapon is on your person, the officer may conduct a pat-down search of your clothing. A driver may not physically resist the search, but has the right to notify the officer that he or she does not consent to any further search. Consent to a search may later be used in court. If you are placed under arrest, it is an offense to refuse to identify yourself, to not provide your address, or to refuse to give your date of birth to an officer. You go to the next slide. So on the next slide, it's penal code, this is what we go off of failure to identify. Now I know it said you have the right to remain silent, you don't have to talk, but when you're driving, you have to have a driver's license, correct, to identify yourself. So that's why it says you can remain silent, but you still have to provide us with your license. Now, if you don't have that license, which gives you the legal right to drive a vehicle, you have to give your name and your date of birth. So we could look you up in the database and see that you actually do have a license and make sure you don't have warrants. That's what we're doing. Now, here's what the law says. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person and requested the information. So that's only if you get arrested. If you get arrested and you refuse to do that, you're going to get charged with something else, with another crime. But that's only if you're arrested. If a person commits an offense, if he intentionally gives a false or fictitious name, residence address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has 1, legally arrested the person, 2, lawfully detained the person, or 3, requested the information from a person that the peace officer has good cause to believe is a witness to a criminal offense. So for this case, we're going to focus on subsection B, number 2. A traffic stop is a lawful detention, which means everybody in that car, including passengers, are detained at that point. So you have to identify yourself either by your driver's license, which gives you the right to drive, or by giving them a name and date of birth. You could switch to the next one. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't have to talk to you, I don't have to give you information. You're right. You're absolutely right, but I still need to know who you are because you are driving a motor vehicle on the Texas roadway, and by law, you need a driver's license to drive this car. If you cannot present that, I still need to identify you to confirm that you do have a license. Now, if you give me a fake name when I ask you for that, it's an offense. If you give me your right name with your wrong date of birth, that is an offense. If you tell me that you live at such and such address, but I pull your address up and it shows that you live somewhere else, it can be offense. Now that one's real iffy because if you change your address on your license, or if you move, you have to change it within 30 days. So I give people leeway on that. Oh, well, that's fine. You know, you lived here, but now you live here. Just make sure you get it changed. I wasn't a real stickler on the address part, but if you gave me a fake name, fake date of birth, then that means you're trying to hide something. And I've dealt with it with people who have cousins with similar date of births, twin brothers, they'll swap their names. I've seen it all. So make sure that you have your license on you at all times because we need to identify you. If you don't want to talk to the cops when you get stopped, have your license so you don't have to say anything. And you really don't have to. Unless, like I said, if an officer is trying to investigate something where he thinks that you're committing a crime further than the traffic offense that you have committed, then they could ask you stuff. But at that point, you still have a right not to answer. Now, this is for passengers. It goes the same way as for drivers. So if you're in the car with your buddy and you're on the passenger side and you don't want to be there for the traffic stop, you can ask the officer, can I leave? The officer could let you leave. But if he wants to keep you there because he wants to do an investigation on something, he thinks something else is going on, you are required to give your license or your ID to identify yourself. But at any point, if you're a passenger and you want to take off, just ask the cop, can I leave? Do you need me here? No, you're good to go. And we've done that several times. I actually had a guy who I knew from Robstown asked if he could leave. I said, yeah, that's fine, go. He gets out of the car, he takes off running. And I was like, what's wrong with, so-and-so? He's like, oh, he thinks he has a warrant. I said, he doesn't have a warrant. I just arrested him last week, But it's stuff like that where these guys get scared and they overreact to something, And I'm like, well, just let him run, let him get his steps in or whatever. Go pick him up around the block. But as a passenger, guys, you do have rights as well. You do not have to talk. You don't have to answer any questioning unless they find something in the car, drugs, weapons that you shouldn't have, or any other type of illegal activity. I'm sure and I'm hoping no one here smuggles people, right? No, okay, good job. Because, hey, on 77, guys, I've dealt with that so much. Highway 77, I've seen, trailer tractors full of illegal immigrants. I've seen box trucks with kids and moms and dads in there to where they're dehydrated. So that's why we ask these questions, because this is a serious thing when it comes to human smuggling. So guys, don't ever get involved in that. It's not worth it. Don't ever get involved in drug trafficking. It's not worth it. You'll have a bright future. make something of yourselves and do it the right way. You know, don't get this easy payday, because it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. I could say that, right, in the butt. Sorry. So go ahead, next one. Okay. So this is how you should act when you're dealing with an officer. How do you feel when you are stopped? How do you think the officer feels? What do you think? Why do you think that? What should you do when you're pulled over? What should you not do when you're pulled over? How should passengers behave during a stop? Now, the second part, I could tell you how I feel. Every time I stopped the car, I knew this might be my last time getting out of this car. I knew that, because that is the reality of it. You know, I've chased people with guns. I've had to, you know, fight people on roofs. I've chased people across highways. Because why? Because they don't know how to act. You know, but traffic stops are very dangerous, guys. There's a lot of officers who have been killed or hurt on traffic stops. Like I said, I jumped in the driver's side of a truck one time trying to keep the guy from taking off from me. He had a warrant. He was beating up his girlfriend. I jumped in there, pepper sprayed him, tased him. He wouldn't stop, so I jumped out. It was either that or I go for the ride, you know, but that's what we do, you know, and we do all that and just leave work like if nothing happened, you know. But our main goal as police officers is to leave work and get home safely to our parents. And that's what I always taught my rookies. Hey, whatever you do, take the higher road, walk away if you don't feel right, trust your gut. If that traffic stop doesn't feel right, call for backup, because we don't want this to be the last time that you ever step out of your unit. We want you to get home to your family. So on our side, that's what we are thinking. We're thinking, please don't let this be our last stop. Please let this go by smoothly. Please don't let there be a gun, because as soon as we walk up, guys, I mean, anyone could just turn a gun on us. It happened to me in Foul. You know, luckily the guy's gun jammed. So yeah, you think it's funny, but his gun jammed. He had a bulletproof vest on, he had meth, he had a gun, he was ready to go. But his gun jammed, and we were able to arrest him. But it's stuff like that we face every day. You know, I've faced it here in Robstown, I faced it there in Foul, and it's scary, you know. And I'll be totally honest with y'all. I've chased guys on a traffic stop who had a gun, and after it was over, after we arrested them, I cried. Because I was like, man, that could have been my last time on this earth. I'm not going to see my wife anymore. I'm not going to see my kids. But that's the reality of it. Someone has to do it. You know, in the middle of the night, we're out there chasing people. We're chasing cars, you know, and just while everyone's sound asleep. But someone has to do it. And that's what we think about every time we pull over a car. So you think about how many times I thought about that. My stress level, I'm stopping 300 cars a month. That's where my mindset was at. So I knew that I had to be tactically ready. I knew I couldn't be sloppy. I knew that, hey, I had to be on top of my game. So that's why we say, you know how to act to make this simpler. Can you go to the next slide? And there's a lot of things you shouldn't do. Yeah, I'm almost done. So when you're being stopped, slow down, guys. Just pull over to the side, get to somewhere that's nice and safe. Park your car, you know, pop it in park. Don't start reaching around. Don't start, you know, making these furtive movements to where we're going to think, oh man, they're trying to hide something or they're trying to grab something. Don't do that. Just like they say, put your hands on the wheel, put your windows down, stay there until we get there, and you ask, I'm going to reach for my glove compartment. I'm going to get my insurance. Nowadays, people don't say that. They say, I have it here on my phone. There's my insurance. Here's my license. And we go about our business. Go ahead to the next one. Now, you can read through here. Like I said, that's pretty much what I said. You have to lower your window, guys. This is required by state law. You have to crack it open enough for us to make contact with you, for you to clearly hear what we're telling you, and for you to give us your information. Like I said, I know y'all have seen videos, or at least I've seen videos where people don't put their window down. And guess what we do? Break that thing open. You know, because hey, it's part of the law. It's either you're trying to conceal something, you're hiding something, or you're preparing to attack us. Like I said, we're not telling you to lower your window all the way down, but just enough to give us our information that we need and to get you on about your business. Next one. Now, I know a lot of people have firearms, or they might be carrying a concealed license, or some people go hunting. If you have a gun in your car or a rifle, let the cops know. Don't reach. Let them know where it's at. If someone ever told me, hey, I have a pistol over here, I would pull them out of the car. All right, go and step out. Let's talk out here. And we take care of business outside. And that way I know that they're away from that gun. Just because we pull you out doesn't mean you're in any more trouble than what you already are. It's just about safety. Like I said, we have to be tactically sound. We have to have the tactical advantage. We would call for a second officer just in case something went south. But most of the time, my traffic stops were within 1.5 to 2 minutes long. So I just went, did what I had to do, and left. Not because I was trying to be rude, but that's me. I want to get in and out of there and make sure that there's no other incidents other than the traffic stop that I stopped you for. Go ahead. So, filing a complaint or a compliment, and yes, people do file compliments on cops, but most of the time everybody wants to file a complaint because they're mad that they got a citation, they feel that they weren't speeding, maybe they felt that they were disrespected, whatever the case is, you do have a right to go and file a complaint. If you go to the next slide, there is some statutes on that to tell you how to, go to the next slide, to tell you how to do that. Basically, guys, you go into the PD, you ask to speak with their HR person who will take your complaint. You have to write it out, say what day it happened, who was the officer, what you were driving, what was the incident. Of course, you'll sign it. They'll give that statement to your sergeant, lieutenant, whoever's in charge of IA. They'll call the officer in, speak to them about it, let them see the complaint, they'll review it, and they'll either discipline them, counsel them, or sometimes they might even fire them. Okay, but just because somebody goes and files a complaint on a police officer doesn't mean that he was wrong. They're going to go in there, they're going to view body camera, they're going to view dash camera, they're going to get statements, they're going to do the whole 9 yards. Some citizens get upset because they're like, well, why is it taking so long? Well, everyone deserves due process, which means we're not going to skip any investigation part because we want to please you right away. We want to make sure that the officer and you both get a fair side to this. So they have to pull a lot of information and do a thorough investigation. And like I said, if it comes out that he did something wrong, that officer can get in trouble. And usually, like for my department, I would ask the complainant, what do you want to happen to this police officer? And they'll say, well, we want him suspended, or we think he needs some remedial training, or we think he just needs to be nice, or we just want an apology type of stuff, which we would make happen. But guys, I mean, for the most part, you can compliment officers for doing a good job. I've gotten several complaints, yeah, and compliments for giving somebody a ticket, which is really weird. You know, guys are happy to get tickets, but it's mostly because professionalism. I didn't disrespect them. I didn't go up there thinking that I'm the law and I could do whatever the heck I want. I talked to them as a person, let them know what they did wrong, and I put them, back on the road. So guys, that's pretty much it. You go to the next slide. So in conclusion, drive safely, obey all traffic laws, be courteous and respectful, know your rights, and stay out of trouble. So, and real quick, guys, hey, just remember the cops are the ones out there, with a gun. So just respect them, be cool, let them do their job, and don't make it any worse than it has to be. So thank you for y'all's time.